And so just a reminder to keep yourself on mute unless you are, later we'll have a Q&A session. So if questions come to your mind, write them down, and also they can be put into the chat, and which we'll have at the end of the presentation. So today we are privileged to have Ritu Chopra, who informed us that she is not directly, but in the universal sense, related to the famous Chopra. And I got to know her because she initially was a Her Story awardee, which our Vice President Katerina Connery introduced us. And Her Story awardee, she'll talk about this a little bit later in her presentation, but it's given to people who impact others by exemplifying the values of, of peace, leadership, and service. So Ms. Chopra is a technologist by profession, and she is an author and a TV show host, award-winning film producer, a certified leadership coach, an inspirational speaker who has been on her own spiritual journey with 20 years plus years of experience in the Fortune 500 companies serving in IT, operations, information security, in global finance and health industries. She mentors and coaches emerging leaders to achieve their personal mastery. She is the founder of Lead My Way, a not-for-profit organization, and a passionate advocate of women leadership and empowerment efforts. So I'd like to introduce Ritu at this time, and I'm going to spotlight you, and you can share whenever you are ready.
Alive. Well, thank you, Marna. Thank you for the generous introduction. I am so pleased to be your presenter today, and this is a very dear topic to me. As you mentioned, that I'd been on my own journey. Being in IT, I was called an anomaly in IT, and because of my a very deep and long practice into meditation and various types of meditation, understanding and making sense of what's thrown, what we are thrown into life, and just to kind of balance it out. And so that's kind of my interest got deeper and deeper into it. And my personal journey has been such that going through the triumphs and trials, and you have to develop that inner peace and inner sense of inner strength that helps you, and that opened up many new doors for me and many paths. So where I find myself coaching, mentoring, and even being a confidant to some of my seniors in many tough situations, right? So I wondered, how come this happened? But that's the situation that they see you being calm in situations. So the mindfulness is also a practice of being into that understanding, etc. So before I go further, I would like to start my share my screen and start it. So, okay. Let's get past this a little bit of the technical challenges. Slideshow. Okay. Here we are. So it should start. Here we are. Okay. Right. So I need just a quick second adjusting my screen. Okay, so as Marna mentioned, that I am a technologist. I have been 25 plus years in data privacy, cybersecurity, and any type of IT compliance. But life offered me many opportunities, and as we women have our nature that we embrace it all, so did I. And I, I had many opportunities, and I call myself a techie runaway filmmaker. My documentaries in gender-based violence and um, supporting women empowerment issues won major awards that led into setting up a nonprofit. Um, what our objectives are women empowerment. I personally believe that the empowered woman can empower the entire family and many people around her, her community. So the women empowerment is just not a word or initiative. It is really in a sense that so important that we acknowledge, even if women are not doing the paid work, their presence and their contribution is enormous. As a giver of life, we have a big responsibility that we contribute in so many ways, and that has to be acknowledged in sense of giving, bringing our humanity up front. I have also been awarded some these New Jersey Changemaker was very recent with the contribution that I make to community through my services, either through nonprofit or directly being engaged. Um, okay, so magic and mindfulness. Here's just a little bragging. It's my book being released. It's a workbook being released this fall, and this is associated with the workshops and seminars that I do on the mindfulness. So let's begin by, do you know why we feel what we feel? We human beings are very emotional creatures. We have so many different emotions that we go through within a short time, given how our day is going, or uh, even in a day or week, we may go through so many emotions that it's very hard to even comprehend sometime, uh, and to bounce back. Uh, just to kind of uh, bring back very recent experiences that the whole planet has gone through is the pandemic. We saw the destruction, we saw the pain, suffering, and death so much that was caused. Um, the emotions, then if you look at, there were people who were able to balance themselves, and there were people who were not. It was very devastating for them. I came to know from my close circles of professionals, I came to know that a lot of people had gone into depression, deep depression. Hospitals couldn't handle them. They were so busy handling the patients with COVID. So why? Why? Because of the tremendous tragedy happening around us. Coping with it is not an easy thing for most of us. Anyone lost family member, unable to see them, be there in the last moments, it was too much to handle. So that's in a very recent and an example that we can all relate. Doesn't matter which part of the world we are in, that's our reality, that uh, we can associate with and know many examples of our own. So our feelings are not in our control. The mindfulness is a process of a deliberate attention where we need to understand what's happening. And at a very advanced stage, we're able to disengage with that emotion that is the kind of an uh, high level stage of the mindfulness. But for most of us beginners or practitioners, or even understanding what is this all about, and understanding of its aspects and what it means and how do I even get there, the basic definitions, what it means is that looking into the mind's essence, the mindfulness of the deliberate attention, paying attention in the present moment, understanding what's happening, just like we were listening to the meditation before the start of this presentation, being aware of our vision, visually what we see, or we see with the closed eyes, the images that they move through our mind, our brain, or audible sounds that we hear, how we associate to them, those are present moments. And as mind is very agile, it's very active, thoughts, the flow of the thoughts through mind is at a rapid pace. For us to be aware of, to understand the present moment where we are, meaning in your day, if you're at work, you have a habit of maybe or being told of multitasking. A mind's ability to move through the thoughts is ongoing, but the mindfulness is being very attentive to that exact moment. And at an advanced stage, I said that as a deliberate attention, disengaging the emotion attached with that situation. So before we get there, let's keep going on. The state of mind where one is fully conscious and engaged in the present moment and with all the distractions that there are. So that's kind of a simple definition of mindfulness. And to help ourselves understand and our environment, leading to the answer that we seek, the starting point is where we ask ourselves about the deliberate attention, the focus of present moment, focus into the present moment and disengaging our emotion attached to that present moment. So let's say we can say that everyone is born with some intuition of inner knowing. We know about something. Some of us have, we call it gut feeling. We can tap into our inner knowing and finding natural ways that, what works for us best. Some people, let me just give you a very light example. Sometimes we feel that we have a better energy in morning hours. Some are afternoon people or late evening. So it's our body's rhythm. We know that how our body functions. And also some can be sitting in a cafeteria and still be able to focus on a book or a something that they're working in with all the noises around. But for others to do some important, meaningful work, which needs a very focused attention, have to disengage, a quiet place. So that is our very unique rhythm or attention that we pay, and we are built that way, and that's fine. So to understand ourselves and our environment and what direction we should take to experience mindfulness. So can you experience mindfulness? Yes. The process of the understanding and experience mindfulness is understanding our higher self, soul, our spiritual being, however we name, as our host mentioned, that we come from diverse religious backgrounds and diverse cultures, etc. But we can all associate with the spirituality and soul, our higher being. And however we associate that, either with association of a religion that anchors us or just our creator, that's fine. But that is our higher self. That is our true self, that which exists within us independently of our body and mind. So that is like independent of body and mind, which is the soul. So it has this spiritual growth component of uh, mindfulness has that spiritual growth component of understanding our external environment, where we are placed in, what we're dealing with, and making sense of that is just taking a pause, being aware of that, understanding our emotional response to the moment, and how to be able to control the emotion rather than having an emotional or emotion control us. So that's the part of, we will call it like the soul's journey. We uplift ourselves spiritually. When we are able to be in control of our emotions, we are able to control our mind's attention, which is the deliberate attention to get to the mindfulness path. So the heart self or spirituality is the innermost essence. Um, the conversation of spirituality, let's talk about it. How we will say, is it a value system? Is spirituality a part of the religion, or is spirituality um, or moral values? Whatever people can associate with them, in my 2 cents, the spirituality or the soul's journey, the growth is um, a set of values, set of practices where you, with the true essence that your soul is content and happy, doing like kindness, compassion, those kinds of moral values that when we practice, we feel good. People around us feel good. It doesn't cost anything. There is no cost associated, but it's the intention that goes along. With those intention, when we do, that's soul's growth. That's the soul's journey. That is what we call is the innermost essence of our soul. And this type of spiritual growth can lead us to a complete transformation. People do change when they have certain circumstances that they force them to change. Not a good way when circumstances force us to change, but if we put our deliberate attention to understanding our environment, our distractions, our tragedies, or triumphs, or trials, so whatever we are going through, making sense of that, that there is an opportunity on those circumstances, and how do we focus ourselves to bring um, our um, growth, our personal or spiritual growth, to align with what's happening, and not allowing our emotion to run our lives. That transformation happens. And other ways that then I can say that very commonly mindfulness would be associated with a meditation. And I think meditation is the cornerstone or the foundation for mindfulness, because meditation is the step one to bring our attention on a calmness. When we say the word meditation, automatically our assumption becomes that we are in a calm place. We shut ourselves from something that is happening around us. And this is our blocked time that we are meditating, and we do not need anything disturbing us. For most of us, yes, that is the practice of the meditation. But from that, expanding from the practice of the meditation, mindfulness can also happen in a very active uh, day, at work, at anything that you're doing, taking care of the family, cooking, or something, any daily tasks that you're doing, the mindful can be practiced still. um, regardless of that is either a very engaging and noisy environment, or even if it is a very calm place where you are just doing your work. So, in either situation, the meditation is the foundation to get to that essence of the mindfulness and the deliberate attention. So, and then fully immersing ourselves when we do, when we become aware of our growth, I think that's where I hear from many people when we have this conversation that, okay, my gut feeling, or my um, there's a gut feeling, and then there is intuition. Those are the words that very often come in. So let's talk about it for a moment. The gut feeling, something that you feel and associate, that your sense of uh, either positive or negative reaction to something that's happening around it, your immediate attention will be the gut feeling, that either you agree or don't agree with something. So that is being really tuned to your body's reaction. And intuition is mostly that you feel in your heart, or in your mind, that you are being guided. You're being guided by your higher self to pay attention to that uh, surrounding or situation. And these are all processes of when you start being mindful, you start being meditative, or you have the deliberate attention to the environment, to your situations, and being very mindful becomes the limitation of the language that's being mindful. So I would like to share a quote from Khalil Gibran. I studied a lot of his literature, and I love some of the quotes, and I often finding myself bringing it to my conversations. So this one is, I quote, "What a man reveals differs from what he conceals. As rains fall over the fields, differ from the clouds that loom over the mountains." So that, in this context that I'm sharing, I would describe it that, what man reveals is differs from what he conceals, is that we become very accustomed to how to express our emotions, how to say, especially like in a corporate world, there's no room for emotions. And we become uh, as a status quo, as a things to be said, not to be said. We we suppress our actual emotion, and when we're not able to, we're not in tune with ourselves or our feelings or our emotions as being emotional beings. So that is something we need to pay attention to in order to be uh, true to ourselves, even though we are not able to verbalize something, but accepting a true emotion at that moment, which either we are able to express it or not, but being in control of it. In a situation like that, when there is a conflict of what you feel and what you're able to express or not, in that conflict, you're hurting yourself. You're hurting that um, uh, being true, uh, aligning with your true essence. So, what I would say that we cannot change our external environments. It is what it is. Your emotion may not be accepted at all of the places, but that not being able to express should not run your moods and mind. Being able to have the control of the emotion and having that deliberate attention to the moment of the present moment, and being disengaged would take quite a bit of practice. But that's what the thought is of the mindfulness to become, being able to manage your emotion, which is also scientifically, explained by. I will go into the slide in a bit. That is the spiritual side of the mindfulness. So let's go into the next slide. So I think I already spoke quite a bit on the understanding of the innermost essentials. So I would go into the psychological concept of the mindfulness. So one of the famous psychologist scientists is John Kabat-Zinn. He has studied quite a bit on the Buddhism concepts of mindfulness, and there's a lot of material literature books available. So what he defines is mindfulness as a paying attention in particular way, on purpose, in the present moment, and not judgmentally, which is what the Buddhist concept of the mindfulness is, non-judgmentally. I didn't mention that yet. So, because the non-judgmentally is like in a scientific explanation of the mindfulness, as we, in a spiritual sense of it, is we are paying deliberate attention. And non-judgmentally could be explained as you are not biased against or favor of that present moment or the situation. So comparing to on the spiritual senses, you became disengaged. Right? I hope that's making sense. Right. So as he in his later studies, he had mentioned that it requires two components of mindfulness. And that's Dr. John Kabat-Zinn. He says the quality of high attentiveness and a concentration and an attitude of curiosity and openness. So I find that very interesting because as two components he's talking about, a quality of high attentiveness, that is the focus attention, what we see as in a spiritual sense of mindfulness, and a concentration, of course, that's there's no difference. Either you're speaking from an psychological or spiritual aspect of it, but the attitude of curiosity and openness. So that is really interesting aspect to bring in the curiosity. We as human beings are very curious people. Curiosity takes us to the next level. Curiosity expands our understanding. Curiosity opens new doors for us. While being curious, we engage others. We allow others to come in. We allow others to share their opinion, and they allow us to share ours. So there's more of a harmony when it becomes a dialogue and a conflict, right? So the differences are present. To bring into the curiosity and openness is bringing our true nature as human beings, that we are made of the same elements, regardless of what our religious or spiritual practices or cultural differences may be. And I often say that we breathe the same oxygen. We have one nose, two eyes, two ears, regardless of where we come from, regardless of our how we eat, play, etc. But we are made of the same element. So there is a very common uh, makeup of the humanity. So that unites us. And being curious and open brings us to that kind of understanding of our true essence as human beings. Okay, so let me move on to the next now. So I would ask a question right here. That have you ever felt that nobody is listening to us, either at home, anywhere else? Too much social media noise, too much conversation, too much overload of information. You're not being heard. No one's listening to us. I think that's most of us can feel that way. That eh, everyone's story, regardless of where you are, what age level you are, we find that nobody is listening to us. Okay. Our unconscious reactions and the impulsiveness of our mind's agility um, are that that we need to kind of listen to ourselves first. And I think if we stop and before we can go to others and say, okay, no one's listening to me, my life is done, I'm not valued, I'm not heard, I don't care. I think it's the time to take a pause and listen to ourselves first. And listening to ourselves opens that spiritual path for us, that who we are as human beings, our true essence, our higher self, that we are opening up, being compassion, the listen, being listening to ourselves is being compassionate to ourselves, and that which is that as I looked at many of your self-care um, coaches, what they have shared, the self-care is part of our own well-being. So if we look at self-care, listening to ourselves is important. Just that the sense of um, having that your own voice being acknowledged is a step one. And then we look at from very mindfully with that deliberate attention, that how do I take this message? That if I feel is not being heard, how do I engage in a dialogue? How do I engage others with that kind of curiosity and openness? And how do I connect with other human beings? And would that make a difference in people would listen to us? We express in our spoken words, and we do express in our unspoken words, that from our sensory perception, that our mind is working in so many directions, and our bodily, our nonverbal languages are saying so much, and the people around us would judge somewhere that you don't look like what you say, you don't mean that. I think somewhere we fall short to ourselves at that point. So being uh, able to acknowledge and being aware of our own listening to ourselves would really help us to have that self growth, and or our soul's growth. So again, this can be enhanced from the practice of the meditation, being very clear to have couple of questions to get started with. So I would share here a Japanese quote, a Japanese concept of shikita ganai, which is the accept and let go, accept and let go, accept and let go. And some things simply aren't within our control. And accept what you cannot change and move on. Accept and let go. So I think that is, again, different cultures have different ways of saying it. And however we associate with something that we hear in our common shared humanity, where these messages are coming from and which culture, it doesn't matter, because they're all our shared part of our shared humanity. we all feel the emotions, and emotions are same regardless of the language you speak. If you're feeling angry, it doesn't matter which language you speak, which is your first, second, or third language, but you feel that anger, right? So same thing is the happiness and joy. So the emotions are not limited to a spoken a type of a language or not. So if we start becoming aware of our the conscious and subconscious patterns, and paying attention to our listening, our self listening, which would lead us to the self compassion, which is really, really an important part. And I'll get to that soon. And I think so far, I would like to say if you have any questions, please do um, take a moment to ask before I can uh, proceed. Otherwise, Myrna, I leave it up to you if you want to have these questions coming back at the end.
Yeah, I think that let's wait till the end.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So the next topic I have is the how to be aware of the mind's the cohesive chaos and find ways to engage and disengage inner chat. So there are moments that we become so vulnerable. That's part of us being humans. And but we protect ourselves. We protect ourselves from pain. We protect ourselves from hurt, and that's human nature too. So when the agile mind going through the chaotic patterns of emotions running up and down and not being able to express, not being able to hear them, not being able to find a safe place to share our emotions with someone who would understand, support us, which is again a need. And that is a vulnerability state of us. And I think that is important for us to pay attention to where and find those ways and find those venues or places that you feel safe to be able to express your emotions and then embrace that vulnerability, because becoming vulnerable is just being human, just being human. The caveat is that where do we find safe space to be vulnerable, right? So here I would say that when you allow ourselves and embrace vulnerability, and that is you're giving yourself a precious opportunity that does help you to reflect your inner radiance, because that has to get out in order that you know uh, trying to find a expression as I speak. You need to let go of the bubbles that they are erupting. Let them go, so you come to the calm, right? So here are some questions, and I will gladly share that in an email. But if you would like to write them, please go ahead. Some of the questions when you sit down, meditate, or you have those quiet moments and you pay attention to mindfulness, attention to the present moment, ask yourself, on what subject did I alter my viewpoint? Where did I change my thought process? Where did it help me to see other person's point of view? So I repeat that. On what subject did I alter my viewpoint? The next one is that what was the source of energy it generated? The feelings, the something that you cherish, something that you really enjoy doing. Where do you get that source of energy that erupts in you, energizes you? and it gives you a new sense of moving on. You get whole energized and motivated. So pay attention to those, the source of energy that would generate for you. And the same thing, the areas where it would deplete your energy, it would drain and destroy your moment of happiness, joy, just in a second. What are those kinds of things? Which type of emotional triggers it caused? What was the event that took your energy away? The fourth is the factors that hold you back. Some examples I can give could be fear, could be rejection, could be some insecurity somewhere, either being validated, approval of others, or financial, or any reason. So any factors that hold you back, once you start acknowledging to yourself, this is you're listening to yourself. So you're listening to yourself, you're allowing yourself that vulnerability, you're allowing yourself for your radiance to shine through this vulnerability. And the fifth I have is, what action did fear prevent me from taking? I've been there, we all have been there. We go through different stages. 10 years ago, the fear I had and actions I didn't take, those fear no longer exist. Either with time we pass through that phase, or we develop that kind of inner strength, persona, personality, and a way to deal with that fear. Okay? The sixth I have is, what were the notable successes and failures? They both are important. And as we hear it so many times, failures are important for as you launch on your success pad, you learn from your failures. Yes, that's true. But all of the failures are not leading to success. If that is a failure somewhere is killing you inside, emotionally draining you down, has nothing to do with success, but is weighing on your soul, find those moments to acknowledge those failures and see how you best deal with it. Listen to yourself in that giving that deliberate attention to that type of failure that weighs your soul down. The last one I have is, what did I learn from it? So those are the different ways to engage and disengage with your inner chat. And I hope that this was helpful. And okay, so come back to the magic and mindfulness. So that's actually the cover of the book, as Marna had shared this brochure with you. So that's the workbook that is coming. So the magic and mindfulness, we say that the basis, the foundation of mindfulness is the meditation. Yes, meditation can calm mind. There's nothing I can say for the importance of meditation, even if it's like 10 minutes, 5 minutes. How do you do, it's up to you. What pleases you, what puts you into the mood of meditation, either you have candle and a music, or you sit by the lake, or go in an open air, or whichever puts you in that mode. The meditation, few moments of meditations are extremely important. And I share mine. Meditation doesn't have to be in an isolated position or have music or certain things. It really helps. But I am at a stage practicing over 30 years meditation, that I've really learned and practiced many different ways of meditation that being in a meditative state for 5 or 10 minutes when I wake up. That sets my day. I make those deliberate attentions. If my day is packed, really packed with a lot of activities, I do have that deliberate attention that somehow I do accomplish those tasks. And if there was something that I couldn't, I don't have regrets for it. Because I try to allow myself to be at calmness and peace. I did my best and I accomplished as much and I move on. If it didn't get done, it didn't get done because my attention is to do the best in that moment with my full attention to it. So that's the practice that I have adhered to, and it helps me. And everyone has their own way of doing things, and that's fine. So, being in the mindfulness, in a relaxed and a calm state of mind, which actually this you would find it really funny that I said that your mind becomes alert. When mind is agile and the thoughts are falling through and all over the place and you cannot concentrate, you're not in a mindfulness state. But with the mindfulness practice, the magic part it is that you become so alert that you have the control of the thoughts. You become in control of the emotion and you become in the control of the thoughts. And that all comes through the meditation. And it's slowly, there is no quick magic trick to it. Some people can get to that stage sooner. For others, it might take a little bit longer. It'll take a little bit practice, maybe some conversation, maybe some guidance, but they get there. It's nothing impossible thing to do, but being alert, having an alert mind and agile mind are two different things, right? So when mind is alert and a heart and a mind, they start expanding because that is a deliberate attention to the present moment. And that it becomes that a view of our experience would emerge from that calmness. That's where the magic happens. When you are so calm and you are so alert and you allow yourself and your soul's journey, your soul's experience to expand in that moment, that's magical. It's very hard to explain in any other words, right? So those could be the aha moments that you feel. Those could be some ideas that maybe a higher voice or inner voice is guiding you somewhere. That you feel that expansion in those moments, right? So that's becoming I would say at a more of an advanced stage of mindfulness, that you are alert and you expand and you still disengage yourself from an emotion and you are still present with the present moment, with the present distractions. So that would be an advanced stage. Okay. The mindfulness, listening, being vulnerable, and looking into the either the psychological aspect of it or for the spiritual aspect of it, if you start looking at them, it's going to be a um, journey to a self-compassion. Self-compassion, as I mentioned earlier, if we judge too much, I'm not good enough, or if you're being good enough, oh, you won't be able to do this. Are you kidding yourself? Are you okay? How did you get that idea in your mind? All kinds of things that are being thrown at you, or you throw at yourself. I tried it before, it didn't work. You limit yourself. Okay, those are the judgments, and that's where we start looking at being harsh on ourselves. on just kind of aligning it with the self-care thought. When we become harsh to ourselves, we're not caring for ourselves. I am guilty of being, I felt guilt taking time to myself, right? Most of us are. Mothers usually, yes. Uh, we do something for ourselves is kind of not in our book to start with. So having that kind of sense, bringing that sense of um, self-care or removing that self-judgment, even if something that you're not happy about what was done in the past. Um, Maybe it wasn't the right thing to do, but at that moment when it was done, there's no way you can go back in the past and change it, but you can amend things. If it caused hurt to you, to others, people around you, there are ways to go make amends if that's possible. And it's personal decision what they are and how to go about it. But those judgments are really weighing heavy on your soul, I say. And the self-compassion is really important to acknowledge and acknowledge ourselves that, okay, um, what happened, what took place, I cannot go back in the past to change it. Where I am in the present moment, what can I do if there is any way to to make peace with it and reach out to the people if they are around, reach out to just to open up. And we're all human beings. And I think that's where I hear a lot of time that sometimes people don't talk for years and years. And those kinds of um, um, differences don't matter anymore. It's okay to let them go. When you let them go, you open up your path to inner essence and higher self, and being allowing yourself for the self compassion. And even on the self compassion, I'm sorry, even on the self compassion, there are lots of psychological theories that are very helpful. There's so much material, books, articles, YouTube videos, and so much that you could find to for 10-15 minutes worth of study, that there is a lot of important information can be found. But those are all kind of come back to the mindfulness. So it's cultivating compassion for ourselves and others is that can be categorized as an empathy, a motivation, and the cognitive side of it, more in it speaking into the psychological terms. The empathy is the emotion of others, acknowledging them, because when we are harsh to ourselves, we tune others out, right? So, and if I have noticed that at times too, uh, that when it occurs to me, this was something sensitive or important to the other person, and I didn't give the other person due attention that maybe they were expecting from me. What was going on my side? Was I stressed? Was I not open? So when we start being like asking ourselves a quick question, and maybe we could go back. Maybe can I help you, be of any service to you? Was there something important? It opens the door to that communication and engaging others, and that's the shared humanity part that we have. Um, so when we come to the self-compassion part and the widespread issue of the self-judgment that we have, um, I think I could go on and on the self-judgment, um, but just to kind of keep to the point, it would be it's not righteousness, it's not I'm right or somebody's wrong or I'm wrong. The self judgment is something that you try to put yourself through that's not allowing you to uplift yourself, right? So that's where you block your growth. Right? When we open the door to communications and dialogue, no one is always wrong and no one is always right. So there is a part of that understanding and communication that we need to, and with the self-compassion, we need to bring in that kind of um, forgiving ourselves. Right? So the forgiving, forgiveness part is again very hard as we talk about is that I haven't done anything wrong. Why should I be saying this, that I forgive myself? With the limitation of the language or the words that we have, we may be just able to accept intentionally or unintentionally that if I have hurt anyone, including myself, I forgive. Right? So it's making us to realize the importance of those judgments and to become vulnerable, to become um, human, to allow others to approach us and open up that space and dismantle the walls that we create uh, around us. So when we get to that stage of engaging, I think I find it that people have come and shared so much of their uh, circumstances or moments that they were going through that I wondered that I was just a total stranger. Why did this person share their personal uh, situation that's so sensitive? I really wondered sometime. And my answer to myself is that they felt safe. And they were at that moment, the other person was at that moment, uh, maybe at the peak of that emotional vulnerability that they needed to let it out. And they felt safe. Right? So those are the kind of things that you will start experiencing because the harshness that we have for ourselves, sometimes it blocks others too. How can we awaken self-compassion? Like I said, by forgiving ourselves for not meeting any kind of standards or not being able to attain any goal we set, or we wanted to do this and that, couldn't get there. We change, our goals change, our external circumstances change. So sometimes we're so hung up with achieving something. I do for myself, every 6 months, I have a self-analysis process. And I go through that. Even last 3 years, some things that I really professionally were very high on my list. During COVID, I still kept it, hanging on to it. That it was once we passed the COVID and all of those restrictions, etc. I'll get to it. But this year, beginning of this year, I looked at it all together, and I didn't find as much passion and as much attraction to the same goal that I had 3 years ago, because so much externally had changed. It was no longer as important for others who will participate in my success or their success. So externally, so many things changed. So I had to adjust accordingly. So I can't beat myself up that I failed. It's not being winning and losing. It's being so open to the external circumstances, and so being so um, uh, I would say wise to your situation, and being very wise about, okay, does it make any sense or not? Being very mindful about it. Um, it's not matter of winning or losing or failure. That goal or that kind of initiative is no longer as important to me or others. So let's move on. So those are the kind of things that a lot of people put self judgments on the wanting to do something and they couldn't. And I think that's something we need to bring part of our personal growth or self care to be able to acknowledge where our judgments are coming from. And so we can cherish our heart, we can cherish our present moments, we can cherish what's available to us. And finally, I would like to say the Daniel Goldman, I study a lot of his literature on emotional intelligence. So his models, he have 4-step and a 5-step models. This is something that I often use myself in a lot of coaching or others conversations too. Self-awareness, being self-aware, as we talk about mindfulness, being self-aware, very much important part of it. Self-management, as he talks about, being adaptable and positivity, achieve and self-regulate. So adaptability, as I said, being able to acknowledge uh, uh, yourself or self-judgments and listening to yourself and being able to adapt to um, situation or whatever circumstances that they are. So adaptability can be different in the context of it's being used, right? Of course, social awareness. We are social human beings. I look at the social awareness as more of a spiritual side of the social awareness. We have shared humanity. Like I said, we have all one nose, 2 ears, 2 eyes at the same places. So we are all, as human beings, we are common. And, so our being aware is part of our shared humanity and being able to show our empathy and kindness, extend that kindness to others, um, being able to open and engage others in a conversation, bring value to them. That's I look at in those terms. And relationship management he talks about. Um, again, these are all his ideas, and we can connect those with our personal growth, our self-care, being able to coach ourselves too. Being able to guide ourselves is that when we are um, giving ourselves opportunity to and compassion to ourselves. And I didn't have any intention to go into each aspect that he talks about, but I wanted to share that I think that aligns very well with what we talk about in mindfulness. So with that, I thank you all, and I would take any questions if you have.
Well, thank you so much for your wonderful presentation and so many ideas. We have one question in the chat
Okay,
about how can mindfulness help someone who has mental health disorder?
very good question. Okay, mental health disorders. Okay, so I do not have any medical or uh, clinical credentials. So I can't speak on that term, but I would definitely share my thoughts on a mindfulness for a person with having some mental health issues. I think the calmness the person around them can notice uh, external situation which triggers something into this person, right? Or even if it's someone is talking about their own personal situation or health. So personal well-being, mental well-being, some of the triggers, as they say, being very aware of that's what those triggers are. And if there's something this person can do to avoid, and what can be those steps to avoid, right? Sometimes you cannot avoid, but being mindful of those triggers and having a backup, such as, okay, if this happens, I would step away. I would sing, I will listen to music or play music or do something. So you immediately you disengage yourself from that particular activity that's happening. So disengaging from that trigger can also be a good way to helping yourself in that uh, heightened emotion situation. Because the idea of mindfulness is to be able to control the emotion rather than emotion controlling you.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
I hope I answered part of it, if not all.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you so much. Okay,
Mhm.
so another question is how does prayer differ from meditation and mindfulness, or how do they compare? Perhaps is a better question.
Okay, so I think it's a very good question, and I often feel myself also that how is prayer different than meditation? Um, Prayer is when we are intentionally praying for something, right? We're asking for something. We have some sort of ask in a prayer, either for ourselves, family members, or someone else, right? So that's where I see that prayer comes in, where we are praying for, maybe we're not praying, asking something, but still in a prayer, there is an intention of to whoever you pray to, your creator, Almighty, and you have something um, expectation from your prayer of
Right.
being granted. The meditation is a being aware of your own self. There's no ask there,
I see. So would you
right?
would you say that with meditation the answer lies within? Is that
Yes.
okay?
And mindfulness, what how meditation and mindfulness differ. Meditation could be just breathing. You're focusing on yourself. But the mindfulness is that you are aware to the present moment and you're disengaging emotionally with that present moment. You're disengaging yourself what its moment is causing you.
Okay.
So mindfulness can be while you're at work. You're very mindfully engaged into that activity of work. So the difference, in other words, the praying is that there may be often there is a ask in return of prayer. Meditation is a self-awareness and focus on self and calming down. And mindfulness is being alert, being aware of the present moment, disengaging with the emotion, and being in control of your mind, being alert. All right. So the last one, cohesive. What do you mean cohesive chaos? Excellent. I coined this term, cohesive chaos. So that's a part of my book, that workbook that's coming in. So cohesiveness is, when everything put together. This in cohesive chaos is that we find it when everything, like attracts the like. When something goes wrong, there's so much around it. It's being, it seems chaotic. It's a ripple effect of things. So in that cohesive chaos, you kind of come emerging above it. Okay.
All right.
It's, as I say, it's part of my workbook. So, which is releasing in, I would say, September, October, fall this year.
Okay. Wonderful. We look
Yes.
forward to it. Um,
Yes.
maybe you could give us finally an example in your own life of how you changed from, an emotion controlling you to being able to control the emotion. Could you give us an example?
Yes. Yes. So my personal life, I have been through a series of traumas in life, very tragic circumstances. So I kind of looked into, gravitated to philosophy. I have no way of explaining this better. It was just very natural to me. I kind of gravitated. And once I did, I found my mentors, which I say they were my mentors have been dead and alive, right? So there were some people who were living that I sought out as mentors, but there were a lot of them were no longer living. I sought out the literature. I sought out the things that I could align myself. So, and I kind of being in that phase of spiritually engaged, um, I saw that a lot of times door open to me that I never thought of. Being in a situation, being in a place, being in listening to a conversation, etc. So I came across a quote. I think this is the Japanese or Chinese quote, which says that a teacher shall appear when a student is ready.
Mm.
And Marna, I cannot tell you how many times this situation has happened to me. I had people out of nowhere showed up that I have no way of knowing these people, whatever their professional credentials, a high level they were. I crossed path with them, not only on the ground, but 39,000 feet above as well. Just my question got answered because my attention that I paid to my inner voice. And this was all overcoming the pain I was going through. Right. So as we say that, our cultural or religious differences are they are there. And we need to acknowledge them as human beings. The pain is pain, right? It doesn't matter. The context of the conversation could be different, but the body and mind or the heart is aching. They're feeling the pain. There's no difference to the body or mind for that pain or the pressure is going through, right? So when we open ourselves for the shared humanity and we allow ourselves to listen, and those teachers would appear.
Mm.
You know,
Okay.
in my first book, I want to share this quickly. My first book in Mastering Life, when I would do seminars, etc. So I would ask people. This was many years ago. I stopped asking this question, but this was that if I give you a book rack of motivational books, would you be motivated? And pretty much everybody said no. I didn't know. Exactly. Motivation comes from inside, not from externally. And the same thing, until we are ready, we have given ourselves for self compassion and we have understood ourselves first. Even those teachers in the books are there, the motivational books are there in your shelf, they would not be any value to you. So I say to people always, and I say to whoever would be listening to this, is be kind to yourself. This is part of self care.
Mm. Yes. Thank you so much, Rita. You have some good comments in the chat there. If you could just stop sharing your screen for a minute, I would.
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you. All right. So thank you for everyone who joined us today. Actually, I really needed this. This past week, I've been recovering from COVID, and my roof is getting replaced. So they're hammering above. So fortunately, they're not doing that right now while we're having our thing. So I just want to share
Mhm.
uh, in the chat the resources that Ritu mentioned. There's a number of things. If you click on the links, then they will come up into your browser, but I will also send them out with the recording. She has given us some excerpts from her own her past book and a free chapter, and we will
Yeah.
try to make announcement when
So the chapter is from this book. It's a lot more than what's visible on Amazon. Look inside.
women, what's the whole title?
Women's leadership. Okay. Let's see where I hold.
There.
Women leadership in 21st century. Raising and creating leaders of tomorrow. This was where the Her Story Award has come in. This was released in International Women's Day.
Okay, wonderful.
Was nominated around the same time for the award. Yes.
All right. Thank you again for all of your wisdom, and I really like the point too about being curious, because I teach safe conversations, and we can't learn about ourselves and others without curiosity.
Very
So
important.
I just want to share next month's hold on, let me get rid of this floating thing here. Next month it will be, oops, did I stop sharing? Can you still see it?
No.
Okay, I accidentally stopped sharing. We'll try that again. Actually, we have Mayuki Pullman, who more than a year ago, I think, she was a pre for us, and she will be leading us through daily energy exercises. And I will send her previous webinar that she did for us last year. It was very hands-on, very practical. She'll guide us through exercises that we can incorporate. So it will be on Saturday, July 15th, same time, 10 to 11:30 a.m. Pacific time. So thank you again, everyone, for joining us, and for all of those who will watch the recording of this. And thank you again, Ms. Ritu Chopra, for all of your sharing and your wisdom.
I would like to share that if there's any questions someone has later on, please feel free to send it to Marna. I will be happy to, or you can come and join our, we do monthly mindfulness, magic and mindfulness hangout. So the links that you can share with them, Marna.
Yes, I will.
Right.
So there's one later this month, correct?
I think that's coming up next week.
Next 24th, I believe.
Uh, there is one on 24th. I think that's my book reading or one of the others, 24th.
Okay, I'll make sure that we get that information in our
Yes.
newsletter.
Yeah, they're all complimentary. Just have to register, so they would get a Zoom session, Zoom link sent.
All right, thank you,
Thank you
everyone.
so much for the opportunity. It was lovely to talk to you all, and I hope that I did provide some valuable information.
Yes, definitely. All right. Have a wonderful week.
You too.
Okay. Bye-bye.